to the Finance Committee meeting Thursday, February 25th, 2021. Tonight, we have Nick Lawler with us, who'll be giving us a sewer update. We will then transition to the capital request and continue our discussions about that. We'll have public input and then members update, approve the minutes, determine the next meetings, and then we will adjourn. So that's the agenda for this evening. Welcome, Nick.
Thanks, Alan. How you doing?
We'll drop you right in.
Oh, great. I appreciate
Jerry,
it.
maybe for people who don't know her, why shouldn't wonder why?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Meet our newest member that you already know.
Hi.
Okay, Nick, you've got to give us an update on what the Light and Water Commissioners are planning.
Yeah, I mean, I thought tonight was more on the two budgets, but I don't know if you guys want to see that. I gave Cheryl some documents for both the water and the sewer enterprise fund, and also our 5-year water revenue plan, which we typically show you guys once a year right around this time. So I'm more than happy to touch on those two topics first if you want to look at those, and then we can jump into sewer. It's up to you, Alan, how you want to spend your time.
Since we're there, why don't you go ahead and do that, the sewer enterprise fund?
Yeah, should be relatively easy. It's generally the same as last year. It's about, Cheryl, you probably have this number. It might be maybe $100,000 or so more than last year. But the bulk of that has to do with debt principal and interest. Because we're starting to borrow money to start completing some of the projects that town meeting has authorized us to complete, such as expansion of the discharge site. So we're planning on working with Cheryl and Sean and the town hall team on the ability to borrow for construction for the discharge site, which I know the sewer working group has talked about. Very preliminary, but that is a project that we have just signed an engineering firm on with. CDM Smith's going to be doing that design. I think we signed that scope of work with them maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So they're just really getting started on the project. It's one we're working closely with the schools with. There really hasn't been much at this time to coordinate, but obviously this has an impact to the schools since it is in their backyard and utilizing one of the fields there. So that's really why that budget jumped up, but there's really, other than that, there's not much changes to it from last year.
Right.
This one is probably important to you folks because the only people that pay into the sewer enterprise fund are the townspeople, because it's only paid for by the 6 municipal buildings that are attached to the existing sewer system. So that's kind of the story with this budget.
Any questions from the panel?
So that's saying the 246,000 is basically rates paid by the town buildings?
It will be. Last year, the way the town decided to fund this was through a transfer from the general fund into the sewer enterprise fund, which really isn't a proper way to run a utility and to recover cost and generate revenue. So we're going to set a rate that recovers this budgeted number. It might fluctuate throughout the year because it's going to be something we're going to have to monitor and work with Cheryl on to make sure we get that rate right, but we're going to target that number. So in essence, it'll be the same as an enterprise fund transfer, except it'll be done properly.
So done based on actual usage, like a home would be or a business.
Yeah, and Cheryl could chime in. I think the way we're going to do it is bill the town directly, but have each building broken out on that bill. I think that's the way she wanted to move forward with that. But we're flexible and can really do it any which way the town would like to see that billing.
Nick, this work at the high school has to be done regardless of whether the project goes forward up the common, right?
I mean, it's a smart thing to do regardless, and it's what we pitched at town meeting, what the town supports. really what that does is it expands the discharge site from what's right now around 18,000 gallons per day of loading that it can take, and it'll make it, we're gonna make a new one that does at least 175,000 gallons per day. So then, you know, and that discharge site can really marry up to any project the town moves forward with at any time. It's a huge bottleneck of moving any project forward, and it takes a long time to construct. So, and this is the one that was backed by the MassWorks grant as well. So we planned for a worst case here with the budget, and hopefully the MassWorks grant picks up that piece and we don't end up having to borrow it. But as you know, it's better to plan for worst case and then not have to need the money.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Yep. You know, in one piece, this budget doesn't really, it has nothing to do with smart sewer. This is just the operating of the existing system, which I know is a common question by residents in town.
Right.
And so in expanding a discharge site, there's no issues with that, with not having enough flow through it like there was on the original system at the high school, if it's not used.
That wasn't a discharge site problem. Yep. No, it's a great question. That was a treatment issue.
Right.
But yes, that's correct.
Any other questions on the sewer enterprise fund? Okay, next. Nick?
I'm waiting to see what Cheryl pulls up. I gave her a couple.
Sorry.
There we
It's a
are.
little slow there, sorry.
No, that's all right.
All right.
So this is the water enterprise fund that the commissioners, and both funding articles were approved by the Board of Commissioners last night. And again, this one, it's a lot higher than last year. I don't remember last year's exactly. I think it was 4.1 million. This is almost 5. But the O&M part of this budget is consistent with last year. It was a slight increase in that. The large increase here have to do with capital. And there's a couple of capital projects that were undertaken. Our board has really been stressing to us, and we've been doing a lot of capital projects, most of it through borrowing, most of it for the very visible projects, you know, Cedar Hill Tank, treatment plants, stuff like that. But what's often forgotten is pipes under the road. It's something that we've been not necessarily putting off for years, but we've been putting off, you know. And we've been trying to work closely with Chris Stoddard of the Highway Department to try to marry up his schedule with our schedule to make sure we're both spending our money as wisely as possible. So there's really two large not large, but there's 2 water main projects in here. One is on Great Road from Warren Street towards Beaver Brook Road. There's a piece of pipe that's missing that really causes hydraulic issues and water quality problems. That's for $700,000. It's a state road. It's a large project. It's a large cost. And then one is tied up with Chris. He's redoing some paving on Wickham Ave. And that's some of the oldest pipe that we have in the system. And, you know, it made sense to us to work with him on that because, you know, to spend, you know, $30 million on a treatment plant, transmission main, and put all this money into water quality and have it all go through a 108-year-old pipe that's full of tuberculation didn't make a lot of sense. So that's really the change here. There's those 2 large, that was $150,000. So almost $850,000 are geared right towards water main projects that we typically haven't been taking on. We have the money, and you'll see when Cheryl pulls up our 5-year plan. Financially, we're in the best shape that we've ever been in. And that's been on purpose because we know that we're coming into a lot of borrowing. We've been trying to start to mitigate against that. So I don't know if before Cheryl pulls up the 5-year plan, I don't know if you have any questions on this piece of the budget.
Any questions here?
I have a question, Mr. Chair. Hey, Nick, how does this impact the ratepayer? What does it mean? You know?
Yeah, we can get into that in the 5-year. There's at this time we haven't discussed a rate increase. The O&M budget's pretty level from last year, so I wasn't necessarily thinking that we were going to bring forward a rate increase in July. Now, that being said, there's a variable piece of our bill that our bond and principal and interest payments get tied right back to our debt service charge. Once Cheryl pulls up the 5-year, there is a slight increase in that charge because we're starting to borrow money as these projects start to construct. But I don't really foresee an O&M budget increase on the rates this year.
Okay.
We typically look at that a little bit closer to June, May, June. And if that's something we're going to contemplate, I'll come back in front of you guys and explain it to you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep.
Can everyone see the 5-year plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is something you guys, Scott Edwards had started this back in 2014. We just carried it on. So you've been seeing this now for maybe 5, 6, 7 years. And it really just shows a breakdown of our O&M costs, our capital costs, and then some of the revenues. In one piece that we have in the town meeting article that's not shown here is we do have a $200,000 reserve fund that gets voted on at town meetings. So that's why the number here is 4771 instead of 4971 on the total expense of capital. I can't spend that money. That's only through a board vote. And it's there in case of emergency. As you know, running utilities, unforeseen things that can come up. So the commissioners have a line item that allows them through their vote to free up cash into the budget. It's not typically used, but it's there as a safety net. So we talked about really the expenses in the budget, and then below that is the revenues. And I'm typically very conservative when I project revenues because water is a hard thing to predict and it's very weather dependent. So that those rates that were shown, revenue from rates it should be lower than what we collect. I think this year we're going to be looking more like 2.6, 2.65. So there is a little bit of buffer in there. Connection fees, those are all the projects that are ongoing. That's a 5-year projection there. And again, those are very dependent on the economy and on what projects are going on. So some of these things are definitely projections and not guarantees. And then we have a South Tower revenue, some jobbings. Environmental testing is our groundwater monitoring program that we get revenue back from. And then, Greg, the question you were asking is the debt service charge. You can see we estimated $884,000 last year, and it's up, roughly $60,000, and you can see the charge per 1,000 gallons. I don't know what that works out on your average bill, but I'll get Cheryl that answer so she can report back to you guys. But there is a slight increase due to the debt that we're taking on. And I think this is the first year in a while that we've actually projected a loss. And our cash is higher than usual. We typically target to be around $1 million in the reserve fund. And as you can see, we're projected to end this year close to $2 million. So we're going to start putting that money into the capital projects that need to happen. And even throughout the next 4 fiscal years, our cash stays healthy above the 1 million. And again, these are conservative numbers, so there's no reason to think that they'll be going down.
Yeah, so, I mean, because you said even this year, even though you're showing 2.4 for the rates, it's really like 2.6. So that -6 isn't really -6 then either, right?
Well, on the year loss for FY22,
Right.
it's projected to be, the budget showing a -646, but we should come into the year higher than that 1.9. And we update this as we go. The way our cash is projecting right now, we're projected 2.2 to 2.4 million year end. So the projected loss will be the same, just the reserve fund balance might be different.
Nick, you're comfortable with finishing the year at 1.2 next year?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, we target 1 million. My dog's having an attack over here. We, we've typically been as low, we've been as low as 140,000, which I'd never want to see again. But we're typically living or looking to live around 800 to 1.2. So, yeah, very happy with that. And again, it's all project driven. We're getting projects done that we need to get done. And in the rate, everything's conservative here. So, I'm comfortable with those numbers.
Nick, the charge per 1,000 gallons, can you, explain that line item? It keeps going up, but if you go up to rates, they don't move over the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's a good question. There's two pieces to our rate. There's just the general rate class, and that's that tiered program, tiered rate structure. There's 1 through 5 rates, and as you use water, you move through that tiered structure. But on
Right.
top of that is this a debt service charge, and that is made just to recover our bond principal and interest. The board years ago separated our common rate made to recover our operating budget, certain capital projects that were taken out of cash from the bond debt principal and interest. They wanted to make sure, especially even back then, they projected that we had a lot of projects coming up just due to the aging infrastructure. They want to make sure that the rate structure in place would support borrowing for projects and completing them, and having our financial plan not be affected.
Okay, so those two, debt service charge and then charge per 1,000 gallons, those two are correlated, right? The
Yes.
two, yeah.
Yes,
okay.
that debt service, how we calculate that 3.26 is our debt service charge projections, that 946 divided by our projected sales.
Okay, gotcha.
That's how it is. You bring up a good point, Alan. We probably could throw a line item here under rates and show what the it's hard to do because of the tiered structure, but show what the typical rate is for a gallon of water, what the average rate is. Then you could add those two charges and find out what your total rate per gallon is. So we can add that in.
It would make it clearer, sure.
Yep. Yeah, we'll add that in and get that off the Cheryl as well.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chair, if I may, Nick, just out of curiosity, I don't know if this was asked before I came on. Do we have an average of what a household uses? When we're looking at 1,000 gallons, what is that? Is it how many thousands of gallons does a house use in a month?
5,000 gallons a month.
Okay.
Is the average house. So, and we bill quarterly right now. So obviously it'd be 15,000 gallons in a quarter. We're trying to get to a monthly billing cycle. There's a lot of reasons for that. One is leak detection. If we're billing customers monthly, then, if they had a leak and they didn't know it, which happens more than you would think, they would see a high bill sooner, and they would be able to address that.
That certainly happened to me, so that happens, believe me.
Yeah, it's the last thing we want to see too. We don't want customers to paying for water that they didn't use. That's not good for us. It's not good for the customer. So that's one thing. It helps with cash flow. It helps in the summertime give that signal. I was amazed this past summer. We're in a drought. We're still in a drought. Even with the last couple of months, it's still a declared drought by the DEP. And people are questioning us, like, how come my bill's so high? It's been raining. It's like, no, it hasn't been raining. What are you talking about? We're in a drought. People don't pay attention to the weather. They just kind of set their sprinkler systems. So if people got monthly bills, I think it would help alert them to the usage rather than after 90 days. To do that, we needed to replace all our meters and change our metering system. We're actually putting a system in that we can read both electrical and water meters together to reduce our operational costs. So we're getting pretty close to being able to roll that system out. Probably sometime in calendar year 2022, we'll be able to do a monthly bill.
Good.
Nick, is that change going to improve cash flow for you as well?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So the cost of doing that doesn't, of changing all these meters, is there an offset there where you, because of the cash flow improvement?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
It saves you money somehow?
water meters slow down over time anyway, which isn't that big of a deal with a resident. A resident isn't using a lot of water typically, but when you start attacking your commercial customers, that's really where you can see a payback on changing out a water meter.
Yeah, sure. Additional cash on top of that when
Yep.
they're big bills versus the resi that doesn't get a huge bill like me that you know, pay $60, $70 a quarter. It might not be worth billing me monthly versus.
Hold on, Greg, what's your address? Man, we might have to change that meter out.
Yeah, check that meter.
We got water misers here. You know, we don't use a lot of water.
You need to take more showers more often, Greg.
We got the water savers in there. We only use 5-gallon showers. That's it.
All right, I'll take you off the list.
Hey, Nick, how much were you impacted by COVID with all those with businesses shutting down and so on?
We were impacted. Not as bad as I thought. It's hard to tell if it's by COVID or not. I know we're starting to see it now with IBM, with HP leaving. There's been impacts there. Very Fine has helped us, you know, or Patriot now. I still call it Very Fine. You know, the timing of them starting to use water has kind of offset a lot of that. We're really seeing on the electric side, our electric usage is probably the lowest it's been probably since the early 90s. So, you know, it's been a struggle there. But the account, you know, our delinquencies aren't that out of control. People are still paying their bills. We haven't done shutoffs for the governor's moratorium. We didn't want to do it anyway. Obviously, we understand this tough times that people are dealing with. You know, so we're doing fine.
Any other questions for Nick on the 5-year plan? Okay, I guess your next slide is your proposed motion at town meeting.
I don't see anything.
No, I don't think we have a slide on that.
No? Okay. Any other questions for Nick?
We're not going to talk about that tonight?
I thought we were going to talk about the,
I can update you on sewer. We don't have a proposed motion yet.
yeah,
So we had a well, select board had a meeting on Monday night, and then we had our meeting Wednesday night, and I was at both of them. And it seems like both boards are on the same page on how to move forward, at least theoretically. We still don't have really a motion yet, and we have a sewer working group meeting tomorrow where we can hopefully get the direction to that working group and how to move forward with it. It's obviously a complicated project. There's a lot of pieces to it. The timing of it's tough with COVID, you know, but it makes sense to move some piece of a project forward. You know, and I think there's one thing that a lot of people in the community don't quite understand is we have an existing sewer system. It's 20 years old. And that system's end of life, and it's time to address that. And what I'd hope to do, you know, in the near future is show why it makes sense to move a certain project forward rather than just replace that system as is. And the select board agrees, commissioners agree, and it's just a matter of making the finances presentable to the town. The CDM did a needs assessment for us. It's on our website. I encourage everybody to read it. But it's hard to understand for the average resident that hasn't been living in the project for the past 2 years, really the past 15 years. Because there's a lot of different ways you can approach the project. There's a lot of different ways you can do cost recovery. And so, you know, the commissioners really need to decide on the best way to go about that. You know, we need to build a plant. That's the bottom line, and we just got to figure out how to do it.
okay, so I assume that's probably what's gonna, if you pitch anything forward, that's gonna be one of the components, right?
Absolutely. You know, I think there's been some confusion even between the boards and maybe with the residents. You we were never looking at sewering the whole town. And I almost think maybe some of our messaging talking about taking a holistic view of the town meant that people thought we were sewering the whole town, but that was never the case. We identified a few areas of town that would benefit for sewering. And again, they're in that report. And at some point in somebody's lifetime, maybe ours, maybe not, those areas probably should be sewered. But we're focused on the common. That's what the project is that we're bringing forward. It's the sewer of the common. It's the sewer of the existing municipal buildings that are already tied to sewer. And it's to make sure we're doing it in a way and build the infrastructure properly now, so that whenever we decide to move any other pieces forward, that infrastructure can support that, whether through expansion or through the right size of the piping in the ground. We don't want to put a 4-inch pipe in the ground and then have to dig it up 10 years from now and put an 8-inch pipe in the ground. We have to understand where all the loads are and make sure that we build this thing smartly. But this is probably my fault. The goal of our working group, the goal of our departments is to sewer the common. That's our top A priority. And that's what the article coming forward in the spring will be focused on. It'll be the common only.
Hey, Nick, with that said, is there any pressure or any mandate coming down? You foresee a mandate coming down from the DEP to do more than the common?
I've often heard that, Greg. I don't think that's how the DEP works. I don't think they would ever come in here and tell us we have to build a sewer system. What they're going to do is, and we do this now through groundwater monitoring. If we start to see nitrates, creeping towards a well, they're going to force us to handle that. That doesn't mean we're building a sewer system. It means that we have to remove it, just like PFAS. We got to remove that contaminant from the water, which could be expensive, depending on what it is. When this project first started, I wasn't necessarily concerned with the nitrate loading in the common, which is probably contrary to what everyone's been told. Now, we then went out and increased the withdrawal capacity at Beaverbrook treatment plant on right behind Dover Salary. And when we did that, our zone 2 grew. And now our zone 2 does encompass the entire common. So whatever contaminants are going in the common will eventually make it to our wells. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen tomorrow, or we even have a nitrate problem there, but it does raise my level of concern a little bit.
Right.
But as far as your original question, I never bought into that theory. I never heard of a DEP mandating something like what you said. I've heard it plenty of times from several different people, but not in reality.
Got it. Okay. Thanks.
I think it came from a certain contractor that's no longer with us. Let's leave it at that.
Okay.
Any other questions for Nick?
It just maybe give you guys some next steps. So we got a sewer working group meeting tomorrow. I anticipate at least a commissioners meeting on March 10th. I wouldn't be surprised if that turns into a joint meeting. And then out of that March 10th meeting, hopefully we have some better answers for you. And again, I let Jerry know, let me know. I'm more than happy to come back on here once we have some better answers for you as far as what we're doing at town meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Nick.
All right. Take care.
Yep. Good night.
Be nice to Jerry for me.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
Good night.
All right. Cheryl, let's move on to the capital request and continue our discussion
Do you
based
want me,
on what happened last night at the selectmen's meeting, or not last night, but Monday night.
so I'll screen share again so everyone can kind of see the same spreadsheet. If that's how you want to go about it, Alan, if that works for you.
Sure, it looks like the best way.
I don't know if everyone can
Want
see.
to share with the committee, for those who didn't watch the meeting on Monday night, about what the selectmen had to say before we get too far into this?
Sure, absolutely. So the selectmen, went through a similar process that you as a committee went through as well too. the things of note is that they elected to not fund the space needs article. The 2 fire articles have been rescinded from the fire chief.
What was
And
his reason for that?
so the rationale, and he is in attendance at this meeting. If you would like him to speak, I did notice him here. So the rationale with that is that the ambulance revenues due to COVID have been impacted. And so therefore there's concerns that the usual offset that they transfer to the general fund to fund the ambulance services next year, they won't be able to make, which then means that we have a revenue gap. And so in light of that, he elected to rescind his capital articles to basically offset that revenue loss.
Okay.
Yeah, I spoke to the chief as well, and he had mentioned that it's about 100,000 that they were going to be off this year.
Yeah,
Trending, the
right.
trend line looks that way.
Thereabouts, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's why those were rescinded. And then the other notable items that was discussed was the moving the major equipment articles out of the capital plan and moving the funding into the Finance Committee Reserve Fund.
Okay, I assume everybody got a copy of your proposed draft for
Yes,
the use of reserve fund.
yes.
Yeah, we won't get to that right now, but that's something we need to talk about at some point. All right, so they freed up another 50,000 with the space needs,
Right.
and with the chief rescission, that's about, well, that was a good one, $110,000. So the question is, where do we go from here?
Hey, Cheryl, also they added in one of the school items, right?
They actually didn't vote.
They didn't. No, they did not.
They didn't. They listened to them, but they ultimately did not end up recommending it.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I think that they just waited to see what we were going to do
Okay,
rather than not recommending.
Right.
And for my money, I think both our items 4 and 6, we ought to go ahead, since we have the extra cash now from the rescission by the fire chief, to go ahead and fund both 4 and 6, and that will take care of the phone system across all 4 of the schools.
And just when they were speaking to the articles, the school actually had number 6 was their top priority out of those 3 articles you see down here.
Yeah, they said 6 is their priority,
Right.
but since the other item is a higher priority, and since we have the money, and since we might make sense to tie in the schools with the same system, I recommend we do that. I can be convinced otherwise, but have at it.
well, let me ask another question, because I had my mind, this is my other question I kind of put in my other message was, if the 50,000 or the 100,000 from the 50,000 from the fire department's not being used, I kind of thought somehow that was going to get transferred over to cover that, but they're not going to be able to give to the general fund.
Correct, it is. Which is why, so if you can see down here on the bottom,
Total.
H, column H, row 38, there's $80,000 remaining in capital available funds based off the Finance Committee recommendations.
Carol, is that up to date to include the 50,000 for the space needs?
Yes, I took that out.
Okay.
Yep. So if you went with their recommendations, you'd have 80, which are effectively pretty much the same as the Finance Committee recommendations for the vast majority, you would have $80,000 still available to spend if you so choose.
So those two school projects could fit into that budget.
Correct. They could. Yep.
And there's no chance with this next round of federal funding, just looking at those, what it's being used for, that we could potentially be able to use money from the CARES Act for that. Just because I'm thinking of communication equipment, paging systems, things that keep people away from each other. I can stretch this as much as we want.
I mean, I know the schools' federal funds are a lot less strict than ours,
Yeah.
but I don't know their rules per se. I know that probably wouldn't fly with the town's CARES funding, but like I said, the schools' federal funds that they receive directly are far less strict than ours. But from my, at least what they've received thus far, they already have spent. So.
All right, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have a follow-up question about what I asked before. Our cash capital capacity, did that change with the fire department rescinding those articles?
Yes, it went from 1.8 to 1.675, which is this number here.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure. Thank you.
And then this number here, the reason it's different is I've subtracted out from here the articles that they are recommending go to Finance Committee
Okay.
reserve.
Good. All right, perfect.
So if I may here, Mr. Chair, I think we've got a question based on what Mr. Wilson had asked, if the school can somehow squeeze this in under, the COVID issue here and get it funded versus putting it into capital.
I think the problem is that they've used up all their current care. So this is an assumption now that there might be more money coming.
Yeah, no, I understand that. So I guess we can't base it on assumptions.
No, unfortunately.
I would be careful with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
At the very least, as they've indicated, they really do need item 6 because that system can go down any minute. So
Yeah, and I've kind of seen some of the stuff based on having a child in that school. So yeah, I think it needs attention. Personal bias here.
Well, I definitely support the last one there, the 18,000 one for Shaker Lane.
If that's a motion, I'll second that.
I'll take that as a motion with a second. Betsy,
Yes,
Jerry,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
me. Okay, that was approved.
Or recommended, I guess.
Or, well, we approved to recommend it.
That's right.
Ultimately, it's our budget, so
Right.
we approved it. So there's still, the rest of the items, there's still money there. Is there another item that people feel need to be addressed?
And if we don't spend this, Cheryl, correct, this goes to free cash. Is that right?
That's correct.
but could we could recommend it goes to the capital stabilization fund too, correct?
You can also do that as well. Yes.
That be
Which
my
would-
choice.
Would probably be my recommendation, just so that it stays with capital.
Yep.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah, me too.
So does anyone know how bad the middle school phone system is?
Well, the school department didn't. Oh, I don't know. Shouldn't say that.
They didn't
I
fix
don't
it
know.
heavily. I
Yeah, they
thought it
Right.
was more to get online to communicate with other systems outside the school, but I don't remember the exact conversation. I mean, obviously, it wasn't a high priority for them, but
Well, the schools has all sorts of things that they were looking to get. And pretty much they put the school telephone system as their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 priority. So it looks to me like it's of interest to them.
Yeah, I mean, I still kind of think it makes sense to just get it done with it once. I think it'll be less expensive, but while there's room, and as opposed to revisiting it next year.
We got it. Let's spend it.
No, it's not that. It's just, I mean, it's just what it's all I do for work. So that's probably jading me, right? But I know we work our customers every time we go back in and do another site, right?
Yeah, I just wonder why it's twice the price. It's
Well,
because the kids are older.
Well, one's just the Chica Lane's is paging, and the middle school's paging plus the phone
Yeah.
system.
And they're completely different lines. I found that out in the previous meeting. They don't link together, so they're two full systems.
Got it. So are you making a recommendation there, Tyler? Or
I guess I guess I make a motion that we fund line 30, whatever, the middle school phone paging system replacement as well, just so we take, we get all that done. It's the same version, same system, all at once.
I second that.
Okay, I got a motion and a second to fund line 30, item 4 on the school priority list. Betsy,
I'm gonna say no.
Jerry,
I'm a no as well.
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Greg,
No pressure.
Yes. Yes. My kid will be there soon enough. Yes.
Gary.
I was a no already.
Oh, okay.
Alan?
Who's left? Me, right?
You.
The ayes have it.
So is that an abstention, Mr. Chair?
No,
Okay.
I'm an aye.
Okay. Little political jockeying there.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I was waiting to see what the outcome would be and then join in with the majority,
I'm not against the school, by the way, having the system. I think putting it into the stabilization to me was wiser choice this year, but I understand.
Well, that's all right. There's whatever else is left over. We would see that come back at us next year anyway, or come in as an emergency sometime during the year.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Chair, on that. I think Tyler convinced me to vote for it. I was leaning towards no, but we got the money. Let's spend it. Good job.
I live for controversy, Fight all day at work.
That's a win for you, Tyler.
I usually split on anything, so
I know. It's a big.
No, usually.
a phone line. That's okay.
We're going right
Okay,
down
so we're pretty much finished with that then, right? With those 2 changes?
Well, I think, just it would be helpful to have a vote to recommend the 18,500 go to capital stabilization that's remaining, and then also a vote on whether you agree with the select board's recommendation to take those 3 items out of capital and put them in the finance committee reserve.
I'd like to comment on that second one. I think it's a good idea to do for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're going to have more visibility into major repairs that are going into vehicles.
Yeah.
So what that does is the second part to this is when they're coming to us asking us for, I got to replace this truck, or I got to replace this tractor, or whatever it might be. We know how many major repairs have been done on it because we have to approve it. So we have a lot more visibility, and I think it makes it easier for us to make that recommendation once we know what's going on with these vehicles versus just kind of asking, well, how many repairs have you done? We have no idea. So it's a little easier to manage, I think, from the committee standpoint. So I guess my vote's yes, or I'll make a motion to support it.
Yeah, I'm with you definitely on that point. And I think having a healthy Fincom reserve fund is looked favorably as well,
True.
for a community. But I know some of the concerns were based on timeliness of these requests, and I think I had mentioned to somebody that a year ago that was probably a more valid concern than now, where we're able. I can be in DC, we can be anywhere, and hop on a Zoom call and do a quorum within 48 hours. We only need 4 members to meet. So I think it gives us the Zoom world has given us a little more flexibility to meet these requirements. But outside of that, either way, I don't think that outweighed looking at being able to really see where this money's going. I often say that, at the end of the year in May, when there's been no blown out transmissions, what's happening to this money? I've never seen it come back. So what are we doing with it? What's happening with it? Are we buying all brand new rims for our vehicles? Are we putting on some nice lights on our vehicle? Where's that money going? So I'd like to at least know, and that's one way of doing it. I'm not trying to be more bureaucratic here, or more controlling, but I think having another set of eyes in our board, which we should be doing anyway, to look at and scrutinize in some cases these type of purchases that may not be emergency, and it needs to be brought to us and explain why it's an emergency as opposed to just getting something done, right? So I'm all for it. I know it's not probably the huge favorable thing for the department heads that are going to have to deal with us a little bit more than they want, but oversight is important, especially I think with things like this. So
What was the select board's reason for wanting to move them to the finance reserve?
I would say it's pretty much those
Same thing.
reasons. Yeah, very
Control.
similar. Yeah, control. And also rather than when they're in a capital article and it's just, say fire, major equipment, only fire can spend that money. So rather than have it dedicated to this much to this department, this much to that department, having it pooled in the finance committee reserve, it can be used for any department and in any
Emergency, yeah.
denominations. Yeah.
No, I see the reasoning and I agree with it. A little bit concerned about the park and rec.
I'd like to talk about that too.
That's a different animal. And I think, Cheryl, that Alicia had sent you something, a sheet explaining where she was thinking about they were going to use that money. And that looked like more like it should have been in their original budget as opposed to a capital item, because they actually have projects or items of equipment that they're going to buy. This is not an emergency fund.
wow.
So I don't know whether that one belongs in that same category or not.
I actually
And
have
it
some
certainly
background.
doesn't.
Sorry, Alan, excuse me.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, you go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
It certainly doesn't look like it belongs in a capital request either. Now that she's enumerated where she was going to spend it.
So what I would just share with this is the background on this, because I remember however many years ago it was one of these budget negotiations right down to the end. And one of the ways the negotiation was, both the school department and Park and Rec got $50,000 in capital. They really wanted it in their operating, but the idea is you put it in capital to get through as a negotiation to balance the budget and to get things done. Because in capital, of course, it's just supposed to be a one-time thing. Of course, it never is a one-time thing. It's recurring after that. But that's how that started. So it really was just, here's $50,000 more to spend on your stuff.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be changed now, because I looked at the same thing. I had the same response, Alan. When I saw that list, I said, shouldn't be there. And it certainly is not an emergency fund. So, but I don't know how we deal with that now, if they're planning on that, and how much of that is, well, they should be able to spend that. There's legitimate things that they have to do every year to run Park and Rec. versus how much of that is emergency funds that should be available to them only for something special that comes up.
But aren't program fees supposed to cover a lot of that stuff?
Well,
That's what we're moving them towards, right? But
I mean,
it doesn't, but it
yeah, I
does.
mean, that was,
Yeah, right? It
that
just
was the
doesn't.
whole gist of it years ago, was trying to make them more operate autonomously with their funds, that their enterprise funds that they had for each program, so that they made their profits and losses, if they had those on the program, so they could evaluate them and determine whether they need to raise the fees or cut them out or whatever they're going to do, or add new ones or whatever it may be.
But the reality is that's not how it works. There's some that make a lot of money that pay for the other ones that don't, and then they do free stuff for the town too, you know. So
True.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right about that, Betsy. No doubt about it. And there's also cash flow, timing of things. Served 9 years on that board. I do recall that, where you have times of the year where you have a lot of money coming in for like Camp T and things like that, and then you have nothing in your funds because you spent it all for staff and whatnot. So I get it.
And COVID probably affected their revenues a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, big time.
Yeah.
Oh, it certainly did.
Yeah, I think
So-
the fact we're having this discussion, it makes sense that this should be a discussion we have when Park and Rec needs to come to the reserve fund, and why the FinCom would they be able to have, the department head here and tell us why you need it.
Yeah.
And, this first year, maybe there is going to be a little bit of flexibility because maybe they were misappropriating it to some degree, thinking it was going to be used for something because historically it was allowed to be. When we look at the letter of the policy and see that that's really not an emergency, and it shouldn't be getting used for that. Perhaps it should be part of your request in the before capital. But
But I'm just not sure it's fair to do that to them
this year,
without any, notice or anything like that. It's like we're changing the game right here at the end. Maybe,
Well, I mean-
maybe you do a portion of it or something. I don't know.
Hmm.
Because the other side is you also hear the select board talk about letting the departments run their department, right? Not micromanaging them, right?
yeah.
I mean, if we need to take a tree down or something, I'm out,
So the only thing I'll say, Betsy, is, and I think I responded to you as well, is, they do have a number of maintenance expense lines, field maintenance and things like that. I mean, at this point, they can always amend their budget. The budget hasn't gone to town meeting yet. Knowing that this is coming down the pike, they have the opportunity to amend their enterprise budget. And I also talked to Alicia about this after the meeting as well. And I said, she's like, well, there might have been some capital items that I maybe would have thought to put on the capital list, and now I don't, they're not there. And I said, well, we always have fall, there's always fall town meeting. So if, they are like, not that, again, whatever, they need a kayak or a boat or a van or some kind of capital, they have the opportunity in the fall, again, to ask for that if going through this, they don't have the funding to support it.
Yeah.
And actually, technically, I don't think, and now that we're talking about this, because they're an enterprise fund, I don't think we can move money from the Finance Committee Reserve Fund to their enterprise fund. Our only mechanism to get them more money, if they need more money from the town, is if they need town funding to fund anything, would actually be to up our subsidy. Because they're, as an enterprise fund, they have their own reserve fund. Like Nick was talking about, the water has their own reserve fund. That's their, as an enterprise fund, it's supposed to be a self-sufficient operation. And so we can't move money from FinCom reserve to the Park and Rec. We could up their subsidy if they needed more money from the town, but we can't move it from FinCom reserve.
That puts a whole different light on that beast, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Doodah.
So because it's sitting in that capital budget now, they still have to get some special permission or get authorization from you or somebody to use that capital money. Is that correct?
No, because capitals, I mean, so we're talking capital budget versus an operating budget. And so we can't have the general fund operating budget can, and we're not actually supposed to, this is the second year in a row, we have an audit comment about this, but we can subsidize and give them a subsidy, which is voted on at town meeting, but we can't move money from the town's operating budget to the Park and Rec's operating budget.
No, I understand that, but if we authorize this capital money and it's called capital, but they can still choose to use it however they want. They don't have to have somebody else say, yeah, this is capital. I'm signing off on this.
Well, no, no, that shouldn't be happening. They should be following our typical capital definitions and rules. I think historically it was a bit of a free for all.
Well, the conundrum now is that we're looking to move these buckets of money into the reserve fund, and now we find that we can't move PRC's money into the reserve fund because we can't give it back to them if they need it. So where do we go?
Well, we could still do fire and highway.
Oh, yeah, I understand that. I'm talking specifically about the 40 some odd thousand for Park and Rec.
Wouldn't we have to keep it as capital?
Yeah.
But if they're not using it for capital, it really should just go back into their budget.
Well, it can't go back into their budget unless they decide to pull their budget that they've just got through making and redo it.
Yeah.
Raise and appropriate.
But we
Yeah.
just did that for the fire department, though. I mean, we just took money,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so this is the time to do it if we're going to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, so what they had some, well over 200 something $1,000 of retained earnings. So if they don't think that they'll be able to cover this expense with user fees, they're already using, I think, 30 or 60 grand of retained earnings to balance their budget. They can use their retained earnings to balance the budget, and they can redo their budget article. I mean, nothing's been submitted, and use that to fund these items.
All right, so propose that we take the fire and police money, put it into the reserve fund. The PRC, we just decide not to approve that as a capital item,
I don't know.
and then it stays within, or it's just excess funds for capital.
It's still a capital item, but it's just not going into the FinCom reserve.
Where's it gonna go?
It could go into the Fincom reserve.
Yeah, there's nothing saying you can't.
Well, I mean, but we can't.
Oh, well, it can go in there, but they can't
They
get it
can't
out.
take it out.
Well,
That's a little
We can put it
one way
into
to me.
We can
plus
we can
Cheryl,
fund the personnel department or something with it. So.
with those pesky phones I added in, wouldn't we have to take those out to fit the Park and Rec stuff back into it again?
No.
No, this was already budgeted.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I thought it had already been moved out to the reserve fund stuff. Okay. So that wasn't,
No.
no, it was moved out on Monday. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, because we're moving out the major equipment repairs for all the other departments. So
Okay.
And
Well, I
I
think
don't have that
it's-
sheet in front of me. What was the number for the Park and Rec again for that?
40.
40.
But that one wasn't.
I mean, if the intent is to take some of that away, so they have to use enterprise or I said, they can't come to FinCom anyway, even if they have something that's really an emergency, it sounds like. I'm not comfortable taking that all away because they counted on it because they've had it before. And I'm just not comfortable doing that.
I wouldn't be comfortable if they didn't have the money.
No, but because they have the enterprise fund, you think it's
Yeah,
okay. How much is in their enterprise fund again, Cheryl?
The retained earnings.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Just hold on 1 minute. I'll take a look for you.
I mean, we have to stop this either now or next year anyway, at the latest, right?
Could we reduce it and say, we cut it in half for this year and then next year they have to budget that in if it's not real capital expenditures?
Yeah, and just or or does she have time to come back and say, of that, this is the stuff that's really capital that I really want to put a request in for, even for this cycle? Do they have time to do that?
Mm,
Make her reevaluate her situation.
I mean, she could. It'd be. I mean, we're kind of butting up against timelines here to get
Okay, then maybe go back to
recommendations, but
Jerry's approach might be the compromise there. Then I think.
they're the enterprise fund retained earnings 278,000.
Wow. Well,
I mean, that's what an enterprise fund does, is used.
bigger than the FinCom reserve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our piggy bank's small.
And, I mean, and I don't want to like rub salt in the wound, but just a reminder, the reason they have 278,000 is because of the 435,000 you transferred to them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
I mean,
okay.
it's you know,
You know what? I like Jerry's approach there, and let's just kind of wean them off of it. You know, give them the 20,000 this year, and next year they get nothing. And they unless they can show that there's another reason why we should continue to fund this above and beyond next year, then you know, at least this is kind of a compromise here.
They just have to, they just have to itemize their capital requests as opposed to having this bucket that they use.
Yeah, exactly. And come back and show us exact.
It's not like they get nothing. It just they just have to do it
yeah.
differently.
Yeah, a different approach. Sure. Yeah. So I guess.
So then the other question is, if we do that, then the other half, we gonna put that in capital stabilization? You gonna put it in FinCom reserve? What do we do with it?
Well, the problem that I see with this, if we put it in our reserve, you know, they have no access to it.
No, that's not for them then. It's not for them.
Right.
So that money's there, where are you gonna put it?
So maybe cap stab is a better place to put it. At least.
Right.
we're
That's
not
what,
saying-
and that's what Cheryl had mentioned earlier. It sounds
Yeah.
like it's,
Yeah, that's probably the better place to go.
but I'm still not comfortable with even 20. This is the money we gave a lot of money. We moved a lot of money over to an enterprise fund. And there's money left over of that money to be used for this. And that, it's hard for me to swallow. That's all. That
I agree, Gary.
Well, it's not
I do too, Gary.
Okay.
not a department.
Mr. Chair, how
I
about
would
this?
rather we just defund it totally rather than doing it halfway.
How about this, Mr. Chair? I mean, Cheryl, do we have time to have Alicia come in and explain and, you know, pitch a case to us? Meaning, because we can tell her what we're planning on doing, and what does she have that 270,000 earmarked for that we've already made the transfer?
Doesn't
I mean, yeah, I would say that the latest would be March 9th.
You know, that's when our next meeting is scheduled for, is March 9th.
Yeah.
Now that's our usual schedule, you know, the second and fourth Tuesdays.
So maybe if I can propose something here based on what I'm hearing is if we say, hey, look, Alicia, come in and pitch a case and why you need this money, help us understand what you're doing with the remaining money in your enterprise fund. Otherwise, you know, we're not going to fund it. We're not going to give you the 40 grand that you're asking for. And then we can make a better informed decision based on what Alicia has to say.
Did
I
did
don't
we
know.
already talk about this? Did the Board of Selectmen talk about this on Monday?
Yeah, they did. And so they kind of skipped over this one a little bit, but then we went back at the end and I said, oh, as a reminder, the Park and Rec should fall into the Finance Committee Reserve category like the others. And they didn't really, I don't recall if they voted on that per se. They just kind of were like,
Yeah,
didn't really
you
say
sort of
much.
reminded them at the end that they hadn't
Yeah,
specifically put that one with the other two.
right.
But they agreed that that's what they meant to do. So, but I don't know that having her come in and explain this all over again is going to give us any more information than we currently have.
Right.
And I just don't want to keep dragging this thing out either.
I agree.
So
Take a vote then.
I'll make a motion to, I guess, remove the $40,000 budget item for major equipment repairs. I guess to be placed into, actually just remove it. Where it's replaced, that can be something separate. To remove the $40,000 budget item, much like the removal of the police and fire budget item lines for major equipment repairs.
Second.
All right, I have a moved and seconded to remove that line item as a capital equipment or as a capital. Betsy,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Alan, yes.
So now do we need another motion as to where to put that $40,000? I'll make a motion to put it in capital stabilization.
Second.
Yeah, why don't we do that as one motion? We'll put all three of them in capital stabilization.
Well, no, because the other ones are going into.
Oh, the other two, yeah. I'm
Those are
sorry.
going into ours.
You're right. I'm sorry. All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second. I think someone seconded.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's
Betsy already seconded.
All right. Your turn,
It's
Tom.
been
Go
moved
for
and
it.
seconded that the $40,000 be moved from PRC or from the capital fund to capital stabilization. Betsy,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Alan, yes. Now we need a motion to move the other two items from the fire department recension to capital stabilization, right?
So was it fire and what was the other department?
Highway.
Highway.
Highway, fire and highway. I'll make the motion that we move fire and highway to capital stabilization.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Wait.
Finance reserve.
I'm not sure we have, it's fire and highway. I thought it was both vehicles were in fire department.
Fire and highway.
Fire.
Yeah.
Fire and highway.
It's not vehicle. Oh, wait, are you talking about vehicles or we're talking about the
Pair.
Talking
major
the service
equipment
line
repair
item.
buckets now, Alan?
I'm sorry. You're right.
We had too many items here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's regroup here for a second.
Sure.
Just while we're waiting, Cheryl, moving those items, where will our finance reserve be, Fincom reserve be after that?
So let me just look at the spreadsheet really quick. So. You'll be at 295.
And this puts us kind of into the sweet spot a little bit of what the Board of Selectmen recommended on Monday, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Just a question as far as understanding the FinCom reserve. So the money, if it's moved for those two line items, that money is earmarked, saved for their use in emergencies, or it's general use, whatever's in there for emergencies?
General use.
Okay.
First come, first serve.
Okay.
Right, another department might have a roof that leaks or something and they need
Okay.
repairs, they could come to it. So that's kind of the, but yeah, it's used for transmissions, major vehicle repair. Yeah, things like that.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so I'll try this again. So, I move that we take the funds from the fire and the highway department and move it into FinCom reserve. What's that total number again?
It's 45,000.
Something like that.
45,000 total?
Yeah, major equipment repair, right?
Major equipment repair, 45,000 total from fire and from highway to FinCom reserve.
Second,
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Betsy,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Tom,
yes.
Alan is a yes, that's approved.
Now, Cheryl, the next step on this, though, this is still just our recommendation, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So then next step, it goes back to the select board?
Correct.
And then from that, if they don't agree, we're going to be having a joint meeting. And if they still don't agree, Alan, let me get this straight. We go to town meeting with two different budgets.
Yeah,
We won't come to that. I'm just saying.
I'm sure it won't, but the thing to remember is it is our budget.
Is that, yeah. We go to town meeting with the budget that they didn't support, right?
Yeah. Well,
That
It
was
won't come
very
to that,
clearly
but-
not the message from those state people that came and did the audit, did
Yeah.
the process though, so.
no,
Yeah, that's fair.
we're recommending that the selectmen agree with us. Okay, Cheryl, we have 18.5 that is left over.
Yes.
And you want to
Yes.
move that to stabilization fund also, right?
Yes.
Do I have a motion to that?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to move the remaining money in the capital equipment of $18,500 to the capital stabilization fund. Betsy?
Yes,
Alan? Yes. Jerry?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Tyler?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
And Tom?
Yes.
Okay. We are agreed.
John, you got anything to say? You've been sitting there so quiet.
No, I'm just glad we cleaned up some of the PRCE stuff. I think that was good.
It's messy, but it gets there.
We're there.
Cheryl,
You're smiling, Sean, so that's a good thing.
So how's our capital stabilization look? Good right now? Are we?
Yeah, I can pull that up actually. Capital. At the end of 21, we estimate we'll have 1.3 million. And with our original addition to capital for 22, not including the two amounts you just voted, it would be 1.6. So 1.6 plus the 58.5.
That's a nice reserve. Good.
I think, Cheryl, we had one more motion that you said was necessary or that you would like to have had. One that we would remove the library
Oh,
funding for that. For the
yeah.
for what was it?
It was the space needs study for the library.
Yeah. Okay. The library study, moving to 50,000.
So can we talk about that again? I mean, when we had that conversation, it sounded like it was all needed, and all of a sudden when we get the select board came up and like none of them knew anything about it. So what happened with that?
I'm going to say it was maybe a miscommunication at the administration level.
Okay.
So this was the money going to be used for the vacated part of the building, correct? When the library
Correct.
left?
Yeah.
Okay. And they are saying that there's no need for a study because we can just build out cubicles on that side. I mean, that makes sense, I guess, but that was, I think that was the message, right, on Monday?
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
I think they were saying that they've already got a lot of information and that they may have sufficient funds to do whatever they expect to do.
Okay.
I suspect that this will come back to haunt us.
Yeah.
Anyway, do I have a motion to remove that from our approved recommended list?
So moved.
Second,
All in favor? Betsy?
Yes,
Alan? Yes. Jerry?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Tyler?
yes.
Tom?
Yes.
And Greg?
Yes.
Okay, I think that takes care of all the motions we needed to do.
so is that another
Right.
50,000 then, so that we have to vote to recommend to capital stabilization? We should have just done whatever was left, whatever the balance was.
I had that built into the
It's already built in.
18.5. Yeah.
Yeah. Good catch, Alan.
All right, any other questions on that matter? On the finance reserve fund policy, I think people need to have a little time to review that. We'll take that up at our next meeting, Cheryl.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if just one comment on that. I mean, I agree with time makes sense. And just, if we're going to start to move more into that and use it for some of the stuff that was in cap before, we probably want to, look at funding it at the recommended level, in future years, I guess, right? If it's going to become, more of a, a standard thing. That's I guess my only comment or thought on it, because we're all digesting.
Yeah. All right, any other issues there? All right, we'll move on. Public input. Hearing no hue and cry, we'll move to members update. Betsy, you have anything?
I don't, I just want to hear Jerry introduce herself since I haven't met her before.
I'm Jerry Bertozzi. Thank you for making me welcome. This wasn't as bad as I anticipated.
This is as hostile as we get.
Greg?
Nothing,
Anything?
nothing. Nah, I got
You're
nothing.
just so happy to be here, right?
I am. I'm excited today. I'm in a good mood today. I think because we're having a meeting on a Thursday night instead of a Tuesday, I'm that much closer to the weekend, so I feel better.
Tyler?
No, I mean, I guess just one comment. We did have a track meeting, mixed in with all these budget meetings. There wasn't really anything substantive that we didn't talk about in the budget conversations we had, right? They talked about the road acceptance and things like that and Amazon, but I think we've all heard it through other meetings we've been part of. So outside of that continues to go along. I guess I'm good.
Gary?
Nope. Just on my final legs of recovery from COVID. Just would like to get my taste and smell back, but other than that, I don't wish it on anybody.
No, we're glad you're with us tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Tom?
I'm good.
You're good. Jerry, this portion is for any member to bring up anything that they've been doing or they heard or they think that we should discuss.
Okay.
So in the future, when I say Jerry, you can jump out there and say, ta-da.
Say anything. All right.
Okay. The minutes. Is Marilyn with us?
Yes. Do you want me to promote her?
Why not? She needs a promotion. Are you there, Marilyn?
Muted.
Muted.
Marilyn, muted.
Okay.
There she is.
Okay,
Oh. She's there,
you
she's
muted again. Marilyn.
Am
there you
I
go.
there?
There you
Come on.
are.
Now we can hear you.
You're not in Iceland, are you? Somewhere.
No, I was in Vietnam at this time last year.
Okay.
All right, Marilyn, do you have the minutes?
I do. I have the minutes from February 9th. Are there any, no one sent back, are there any corrections or changes or anything that anyone had?
Okay, then it must be okay. What else you got?
I've got the ones from the combined Board of Select Board meeting on Monday night, which I sent out this afternoon, which there was no quorum available, no meeting transpired.
Okay,
And that was for the 22nd. So those are the two lots of meetings that I have right now.
all right. So we need to approve the minutes of, you said the 9th?
Then February 9th, yes.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Second, moved and seconded to approve the minutes of Finance Committee meeting on February the 9th. All in favor, say aye. Betsy,
aye.
Jerry.
I didn't see them. Can I abstain?
Oh, that's right. You weren't here.
Yes,
Sorry.
yep.
Yeah, Greg.
Jerry, you'll have to send me, or I need your email so I can send things out to you from now on.
Okay.
Okay?
Greg,
Aye, yes.
Tyler,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Alan is a yes. And I assume we don't have to approve the minutes of a non-meeting.
Yeah, but I'll just make sure they go in anyway.
If it turns out I'm wrong, we'll pick that up later.
Okay.
Okay, folks, our next meeting, scheduled meetings are the 9th and the 23rd. If something else comes up in the meantime, there's always to be determined meetings, so I'll give you a heads up as quickly as I can. But
So Alan, are you gonna wanna vote the financial articles before select board?
I'm sorry?
Are you gonna wanna vote on the financial articles before the select board?
Oh, the ones we just recommended?
Yeah, go through the warrant and make your recommendations on the warrant.
Along with them?
Yeah, I'm just saying, I'm thinking I think they're voting on the 22nd. So
I
if you
think
want,
they're voting to put them in the warrant, right? Or they're voting to approve on the
To
22nd?
recommend.
yeah, recommendations, I think.
Yeah,
They usually don't want to vote before we do on financial articles.
Right. So I'm just saying this because you might need to have a meeting on the 16th.
yeah, you're
Or
probably right.
sometime before the 22nd, in between the 9th and the 22nd, possibly.
Okay,
Pencil that one in, huh? Or plan it.
so,
Yeah, just plan it.
So they must be meeting really soon to put the articles, to vote the articles in.
I think on the 8th,
Okay.
yeah.
okay, so they'll vote them on the 22nd, so, yeah, okay, the meeting on the 9th is a go, and I'll pick a time for sometime between that and the 22nd for us to get together. I would say the 15th, that's a Monday, right? Or is that a
Correct.
Tuesday?
Monday.
That's a Monday.
It's a Monday. I have another meeting that night, so I can't be in two places at one time. But we could,
Or is that too
we
soon?
could- we could meet on a Tuesday. Is that the 16th?
Well, you have a meeting on the 9th, right? Can we do it then, or is that too soon? Will we not have things printed and ready to go?
Yeah, I don't think we'll have
We'll be
things
ready.
ready to go.
We might want to push it all the way like to the 18th, then the Thursday following, just
Yeah,
time, because you got to put all that together and print it all out. That's.
Your suggestion, Gary, was what date?
I was just saying the 18th, kind of like tonight we did on a Thursday. I know it's kind of out of cycle, but I think if those warrants have to be ready for the 22nd, they're probably going to be pretty close to ready on the 18th.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Personally, I have a conflict on the 16th, so the 18th would work better for me. So I'm kind of with Gary on this one.
Everybody comfortable with the 18th?
Mhm.
Okay, then our next two meetings will be the 9th and the 18th.
Greg, you bringing beer for everybody then?
You better believe it.
Is the town meeting been set on a date and place?
Mhm.
I think the date hasn't been fully set.
Okay.
I
That's
think
fine.
they're, yeah, I think they're voting on that on the 8th.
Okay.
They have a couple dates.
Were they trying to make it a Saturday again?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Right, sunshine, right after the soccer game.
Bring out your tanning oil.
Okay, anybody have anything else of note?
Let's end it before Greg talks about more tanning.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Now, I'll
Second.
certainly accept that. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn this. And Betsy, do you agree?
I agree. Yes.
Alan, yes. Jerry,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Tyler,
Absolutely, yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and Gary.
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.
Good night.
Adios.